We are on a back-to-back, and this episode is Prospect Pitch. Now, Prospect Pitch, I've had different guests on, but I'm excited about this one because this is Mr. Mavs draft, Richard Stayman, and he is going to pitch me on one of his favorite prospects that he has been talking about for the past, 2 years?
3.
3 years. And it is Mike Miles from TCU. So stay tuned to see if Richard can convince me that Mike Miles is a first-round pick. Big shout out to each and every person that has made the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast your first listen of the day. I'm your host, Rafael Barlowe, the director of scouting for NBA Big Board. And my co-host for today is Richard Stayman, Mr. Mavs Draft. And this episode is Prospect Pitch. I haven't done one in a few weeks. Kind of let the NCAA tournament kind of run its course and did a bunch of episodes centered around that. But now Prospect Pitch is back. And now, before we get into it, how are you doing today?
I'm all right. You know, the Utah Jazz almost saved the Mavs tank race, but they could not pull it off. So could be better.
All right. Yeah. I am just, we did a podcast and I'm looking at the scores on my phone and I'm like, I don't know who I want to win. I'm not a Lakers fan, but at the same time, the Jazz and the Mavs would be tied. I don't know who owns the tiebreaker. So
I think the Jazz would it'd be better for them in the tank race. They would have the advantage. So they would be lower. So technically, like if it came down to the playoffs, Mavs would have it. But if you're going for the tank race, Jazz.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Tank race. You did say tank race. All right, let me switch hats. I know nothing about prospects. You are going to pitch me on Mike Miles. All right. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right. So, who is this prospect, Mike Miles, that you are trying to convince me is a first-round pick? Tell me all about it.
Yeah. So a little bit of background on Mike. And I'll just start with myself. This is one of the times back in 2020, I wasn't keeping up with high school basketball very much. And I think that actually probably played out better for me because Mike Miles wasn't a guy that was on a lot of recruiting boards, but he was AAU teammates with Cade Cunningham, Greg Brown, and a few other guys. So a bunch of guys from the DFW area. He's from Lancaster. If I'm not mistaken, he's the highest ranked recruit to ever commit to TCU. So that's really high praise. And he lived up to the hype. What really makes me optimistic about him, just on top of all of that, is that he's 20 years old. He was born in August of 2002. He will be 20 throughout summer league. He'll be 20 on draft night. He'll be barely 21 on opening night. For reference, Brandon Miller turns 21 in like October, and the Thompson twins turned 21 in January. So it's 4 months of a difference on average between those three guys, and all those guys are at the top. So you're getting somebody at pretty much the same age, within months of those guys, with 3 years of college experience. I think that's really valuable. On top of just the background, though, just you look at a floor general, you look at somebody who has underrated athleticism, and I think that'll pop a little bit more in the NBA, and I really buy his jump shooting. So somebody who could be a 3-level scorer with great feel for the game, I'm all about that. I think, to be a 6'1", 6'2" guard in today's NBA, you really have to pop as a scorer, and I think he will. He's going to develop really well in the next level as he gets older with the level of experience he has already for his age.
Is this the same Mike Miles that was on the Ball is Life video in like 2014 when he was a little kid?
Yeah, so it's funny. I actually didn't know that until I think him or his mom had told me that. She was like, I think it was his mom. She was like, oh yeah, he's had to deal with fame for his whole life because of that video when he was like 9. And I was like, wait, video? And I looked it up and it's just crazy.
Yes, Ball is Life legend, but I haven't seen him since that video. All right, so you said he's a 6'2" point guard, and you mentioned that he has 3 years of experience and he's only 20. So, I mean, what did he enter college at 17?
He was 18. He was a pretty much a brand new 18. So like at the start of the season, I mean, he was 18. So technically, yes, 17. He was at college. Like, it's just nuts.
All right. So if he were, let's say he were in the high school graduation class of 2022 and he just finished his freshman year, would he be more highly touted in your opinion?
It depends. So I actually think his freshman year should have warranted more hype. I mean, he averaged 13 and a half points a game, 3 rebounds, 3 assists on it was only 41% shooting, but 36% from three, 83% from the line. I think there would be more hype. I think you look at Kennedy Chandler, I don't think there would have been a great difference between his freshman year and Kennedy's freshman year. I know Kennedy was a little bit more hyped though, but I don't think there's a crazy difference. And Kennedy just went pretty high second round.
Okay. Now, what's the skill set that you think he could hang his hat on? Do you think he's more of a scorer, or do you think he's a playmaker, or do you think he's somewhere in the middle?
Somewhere in the middle. I was really surprised when I was looking at his stats that he only averaged 2.7 assists per game. I think it speaks volumes because TCU was like a bottom 5 3-point shooting team in the NCAA tournament. And let's be real, like assists are a 2-person stat. And if your teammates aren't hitting their threes, it's going to be hard to get assists, especially when your whole system is you're being trapped at half court, a la Luka Doncic. He makes quite literally the exact same passes out of the same plays with the same accuracy, which is just nuts. And he will hit his corner shooters, and they miss a lot because the team just wasn't a good 3-point shooting team. So I do think there's more playmaking than the stats tell. But I do think his 3-level scoring is just going to really be carrying him. And that combination of the two is what I really like. I think he's somebody who is going to finish really well at the rim. I mean, for reference, there were only 2 or 3 guards that finished with a better percentage at the rim than him this year in terms of layups, or actually just in general, because most of guards just take layups. But he was incredibly efficient. I mean, he jumped from last year being 38% to 49%, actually really 50 if we're rounding up. It was 50%. That's a massive increase. And the 3-point percentage wasn't an insane jump by any means. But you look at somebody who has no fear going to the rim, whether it's drawing a foul or finishing. He's got great touch. I think he's just going to explode as a 3-level scorer in the NBA when you take away 2 bigs that he's going to have to be playing with at all times. Plus, there was no defensive 3 in college. Teams could camp out against him and say, all right, we're not letting you do this. So I think that's going to benefit him a lot.
So you're telling me there is a 20-year-old that has 3 years of college experience in the Big 12, which is the toughest conference in college basketball. Well, some people from the Big East may have, a little say so about that. So again, 20 years old, 3 years of college experience, and he shot 50% from the floor.
Yeah, and 36% from the field, 75% from I'm sorry, 36 from 3, 75% from the line. The efficiency is very translatable.
Now, what would you say is the biggest difference between freshman year Mike Miles and junior year Mike Miles?
Aggressiveness, easily. He was somebody who he would go to the rim once or twice. He would take a hit and he's like, all right, I'm becoming a jump shooter now. Or he would go to floaters, things like that. And honestly, I mean, I know you said freshman year and junior year, but I'll throw in his sophomore year. I did an interesting dive on this. So he took 79 runners as a sophomore, and he took 29 as a junior. If you take out every runner that he took last year as a sophomore, his field goal percentage jumps up almost 3%. So he would have been over the same 41%. The runner wasn't efficient. I mean, he was a 26% shooter on the runners. This year, he went up to 51%. So knowing how and when to use that runner has been a major weapon, on top of him being fearless going to the rim. So that combination has just been lethal. And to me, that just screams great finishing ability that translates.
All right, so if we draft him and we want him to contribute and play right away as a rookie, what should his offseason focus be in order to get him prepared? Like if you were coming up with his preseason or actually summer workout routine, what's the main focus?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's shooting. He is somebody who was struggling with the 3-ball, I'd say pretty early in the season, and then he turned it around come January. I mean, he shot 45% in the last really 2 months of the season, from at West Virginia, January 18th to the last game. That was 13 games. Before that, it was a little bit less pretty. I mean, I was looking at his stats and just, every game I was like, all right, maybe the three ball just may not come around. Before that, he was at 28.6. So you look at that massive gap. While he did finish well from three, that averaged out to 36.2%. He's got to become a more consistent shooter from game to game. And it can't be just like, some games you have the runner and the finishing, some games you have the three. You have to have all of that at once. And I think the finishing will be there every game, but the jump shooting's got to be there every single night.
Now, let me ask you this. Did he play a role where he was pretty much I don't want to say ball dominant because that could sound selfish, but was he in a heavy usage role where he had to create a lot of scoring opportunities for himself and others?
Yes and no. I think actually that's what benefited his 3-point percentage was for a good portion of the season. So Damian Ball, the other guard, was suspended for almost all of November, and it took him a little bit to get integrated. And I think really you can point to mid-January and say, all right, this is the moment. This is where they kind of started meshing, and Mike Miles is able to play off ball and on ball more efficiently. It wasn't that he had to do everything as the hero as both roles. He could play more easily. It just seemed more fluid. And that's, he's going to have to play in a two-guard system in the NBA too. That's just the nature of the game now, especially when you're 6'1", 6'2". You're not going to be the lone guard. So I think that's actually beneficial where, yes, he did have to do a lot, especially I'd say as a playmaker earlier in the year and getting shooters involved. But having that, just being able to play off ball, I really think the last 2 months are going to show why his game translates.
Good, because I answered my question. Because a lot of times when you have a point guard that is used to controlling everything and having the ball in his hands all the time, he struggles off the catch. Like we've had, there's situations where there are guards that can shoot the pull up, they can shoot everything, but they need a rhythm off the dribble. And then when they're playing with basically a max guy that needs the ball, they struggle off the catch. So I wanted to know how well he shot if he wasn't the primary ball handler. All right, when we return, I have a few more questions, but let's talk about Ibotta. Groceries, school shopping, and getting a little something for yourself. You're already doing it, so why not get cash back for it? You can with Ibotta. If you're watching your closet grow after purchasing all the season's latest trends, how about also watching your cash back grow with each purchase? You can do that with Ibotta. You can earn cash back on every shopping trip. Ibotta gives you cash back on hundreds of grocery items from produce to personal care to pantry goods. Either link your loyalty account or upload your receipt after you shop and get your cash back. It is that easy. The average Ibotta user earns $120 a year in real cash back. That could cover the cost of an entire shopping trip. I don't know what $120 can get you shopping, or you can use your cash back to buy that flight that you've been eyeing, that game you're dying to go to, or that fancy dinner that you have been craving. A typical basket of groceries was over $50 more expensive at the end of 2022 than the beginning of 2023 due to inflation. You could earn 2.5 times that in cash back from Ibotta, or even more, depending on how much you use Ibotta. Ibotta gives you real cash back, not points. Other apps give you points that do not amount to much. With Ibotta, you get real cash back that you can cash out to your bank account, PayPal, or gift card. You can earn cash back on hundreds of online brands and retailers too when you start with Ibotta, including Lowe's, Macy's, and Sephora, Best Buy, and more. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just to try Ibotta by using the code LOCKED when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app and use the code LOCKED. That is IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store and use the code LOCKED. All right, second segment. Mr. Mavs Draft is pitching me, or us, the audience, on Mike Miles as a first-round pick. All right, so I'm going to list a few qualities, with 5 being the best and 1 being the worst. So if you had to rate Mike Miles on being unselfish, what would you rate? 5 being the best, as he is really unselfish, or 1 being he is a ball hog? What What would you give him as a rating?
4.5 at a minimum, depending on the night, how much he needs to be that guy. I think that would be the only reason why he'd be less than a 4.5. Like, I mean, he's really unselfish. I think he knows, he makes a clear difference of, I need to be the guy and I want to be the guy. And it's very rarely I want to be the guy. Like, it's within the flow of the offense that he takes over. And I don't think it's a selfish way at all. So I'd say 4.5, 5.
Okay. All right. What about energy? Well, like, what type of energy does he bring to the table? Is he a high energy guy? Is he, it depends, with 5 being the best and 1 being the worst.
I'd say it's a 5. I mean, he improved a lot defensively this last year. And I think given the load he had to take, plus the amount of hits he took at the rim while doing it so much going to the rim, I think a lot of guys would have chosen, all right, I'm gonna coast a little bit on defense, but TCU had a great defense and he played a big part of that. I really just think his energy is contagious, and I don't think he wanted to take nights off. Like, that motor doesn't stop.
Okay. All right. What about his instincts?
5, easy, no question. I personally, I don't think there's a better. This is such a weird thing, and I've talked about this a lot, like on Twitter and stuff, but I don't think I've ever seen a point guard protect the rim the way he does. And that's not the translatable skill. It's not the takeaway. He's not ever going to do that. But it just tells, all right, he knows what to do. Even if he's not built for it, he will try his hardest. He will get there, and he probably will find success. Like, he's an underrated athlete, and he rotates so quick. He'll get up, he'll go vertical, which is just nuts for a 6'1" point guard to think. There are countless examples of it. I've tweeted a few of them. I really think he's somebody who just, I mean, the feel for the game is phenomenal. And that's one sharp example on the defensive end for me.
So we got a 6'2" Roy Hibbert. Is that what you're telling me?
Yep, you can't convince me otherwise.
All right. All right. What about his quick decision making?
I'd say it's a 4. I think this just comes with him being 20 years old. Like, I think it can get better. I also think the college spacing hurts it because he always has to deal with a big camping out in the paint. I mean, it's just the nature of college basketball is there's no penalty for sitting in the paint for the entire shot clock. And I think it throws him off a little bit. I think when defenses have to be moving and moving and moving, yes, that could be a little bit of an issue, having to dissect, the angles and things like that and seeing through traffic more a little bit. But I do think he's there where there's at least enough skill and he's young enough to say, all right, we can turn this from a 4 to a 5.
Okay. All right, let's talk about his physical characteristics. What would you grade his length? 5 being the best, 1 being the worst.
I think it's a 2 to 2.5. He just doesn't have long arms. But, I mean, you'll probably get to this, but I mean, he's strong, so he makes up for it.
Okay. What about his quickness?
If you heard that about a TCU guy.
What about his quickness?
Sorry, what'd you say?
Quickness.
4.5 or 5. I actually just posted something Tuesday night. I mean, he is very, very quick. His first step is nuts, and his explosiveness, like going quick into that jump, is very fast.
Okay. What about his overall speed? Like, some guys can be quick but not fast. Is he someone that is fast in the open floor?
Yeah.
Or is he more quick than fast?
Like, on a scale of 1 to 5, like 4, 4.5. I think he's very well above average at a minimum. I think he's got great quickness personally, especially that initial burst is great. And then he keeps that, he doesn't drop off at all. Like, and sometimes his second and third step gets faster and faster. I really just like his ability in an open floor. If somebody's trying to get a chase down block, like, good luck. It's hard. He's too quick.
Okay. What about his overall athleticism?
I'd say it's a 4.5. I mean, the really knock is just, I mean, he only had like a handful of dunks in college, so it's a little bit hard, but those dunks really popped. I mean, a lot of them were off cuts where he could just finish above the rim, where I'd say most point guards his size in college wouldn't be doing that.
Okay. All right. What about his physicality and toughness? I know you mentioned that he's strong.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a 5. I think he added a lot of strength to be able to do that. And the fearlessness, the ability to absorb and finish through contact really matters. And I think that's something where it's just a hands down 5 for me.
Okay. All right. What about his positional size?
I mean, it's a 2, 1. I mean, he's not 6 foot, which is good. 6'1" gives you actually a lot more flexibility. It's really weird, the difference of 6 foot and under guards in the league and then 6 foot and 1 and under guards. Like, it's a massive jump. Yeah. So I think that it's not good, not lethal.
Okay, let's talk about the mental characteristics. Basketball IQ.
5. I mean, just kind of that same thing. It goes hand in hand with the instincts. If that's a 5, this is a 5, I think. You just look at somebody who he reads defenses very well as a ball handler, and he reads offenses very well as a defender.
Okay. What about being coachable? Like just from afar, do you think he's coachable?
I think so. I don't think I could give a number exactly on that, but I mean, just watching, I mean, I've been at, for those who don't know, I've been at I didn't go to the COVID year games in 2020, but I did go the last 2 years to almost every home game for TCU. So I've seen a very good amount of Mike Miles on the bench. And I mean, he's never frustrated. He's never like fighting back with the coaches. He's always very willing to listen, and it seems like he wants to get better.
Okay. What would you grade his maturity and professionalism?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say like 5. I haven't seen anything that's really taken it away. Kind of like I said, I mean, he doesn't really fight back with anybody. I mean, even last year against Arizona, when he had every right to be mad, I mean, he went the craziest thing he did was tweet about it, like with the bad reffing, which was honestly justified. Whereas Dalen Terry was out there like taunting right after, like in his face, and Mike just kind of walked away from it. I think that's, especially at 19 years old at the time, that was pretty mature.
Okay, so you'd give him a high grade as far as his on court leadership.
Yeah.
All right. When we return, now I want to get into his offensive skills and defense. But let's talk about FanDuel, because the NBA playoffs are almost here. And now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, which is America's #1 sports book, because new customers get a no sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It is safe, it is secure, and it is easy to use. You can bet on everything from the money line to points scored and threes drained. And FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same game parlay. Do not miss the chance to get your no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to fanduel.com/locked on. That is fanduel.com/locked on to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, which is the official sports betting partner of the NBA and Locked On. All right, last segment. Mr. Miles Draft. Richard Stayman is pitching me on Mike Miles. So far, he's done an excellent job. All right, let's talk about the offensive skills. Shot selection.
Again, on a 1 to 5, right?
Yep.
Or just in general. Yeah, I think it's a 4 or 5. He doesn't really take anything bad. I do think he could maybe. I really don't even know what he could do better on shot selection, honestly. I don't think there's anything bad. It's not like elite. It's not pristine. He might force a couple shots at the rim. I mean, I think a couple examples. First, Gonzaga. You could really see it versus Kansas. Those were 2 games. And now Kansas one was in February at home. There were over 30 scouts at that game, which is nuts. But, the whole team was just trying to get free throws. And he was part of, trying to force a bit of contact at the rim that may not have naturally been there. That's as bad as it gets.
Okay. All right, let's talk about him as a pick and roll finisher. Or is there enough sample size? College basketball, you may not get a lot of pick and rolls.
Yeah. I mean, you're saying as a ball handler coming out, not as the roll man, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. You said he's Roy Hibbert, so I don't know what.
Yeah, I misled you. Yeah, I mean, I think he's pretty good out of the pick and roll, and pick and roll is the most important play in the NBA as a guard to be able to run. Just from synergy, I mean, looking at the pick and roll ability, pick and roll including passes, 67th percentile. I mean, that's still good. It doesn't sound like anything crazy, but I do think that is very good, especially given the field goal percentage. And again, this is passes included 43%, but his own shots 44%, and he shot only 22% out of threes. Don't really care about that because the whole number will change. But I do think his pick and roll ability, just to kind of dissect defenses. Personally, I think it's a little bit behind like what Desmond Bane was, but also Desmond Bane was a great pick and roll ball handler. So it's a high bar.
So what's the grade you give him?
I'd say a 4.
Okay. What about as a pick and roll shooter? So I'm talking about like the pull up dribble, and whether it's from behind the line or when in drop coverage, can he make guys pay?
Yeah, I think he can make guys pay on drop coverage. His overall off the dribble was pretty rough this year. He did most of the damage as a spot up shooter, but I mean, I think you look back at his freshman year and he was doing more damage. I would say off the dribble. Actually, looking at the numbers, it's actually worse. But it did feel like he was able to get the screen, get the switch, and toy with his defender. Whether or not he made the shot, it was almost a just a process over results kind of instance. And to me, he passed that part. So with pick and roll shooting, I mean, probably 3.5, just because you got to get that off the dribble number up.
Okay. As a passer, pick and roll passer, playmaker.
Yeah, I think he's really good. He handles traps well. I can't tell. I think, let me ask you this. Generally speaking, when a guy is double teamed and he's passing out of the double team, and he makes the pass like it's an accurate pass, does that worry you? I know jump passes, some people get iffy on it because that'll impact the answer, I think.
As long as it gets there. I don't care if you got to throw it behind the back. Long as you can avoid the trap and you can make the team pay for sending two guys at you, because there's always going to be somebody open. So it doesn't necessarily have to be the assist. It can be the hockey assist. So
yeah. I mean, I would give him a 4, but then 4.5. Just because I mean he makes these plays just like Luka does. I mean, I'm telling you, like he gets trapped at the exact same spots. He gets a screen, they trap him, and he still finds ways out of it to get the offense at least a great shot. So that's really appealing to me. And I think in the NBA, he's not going to be facing the same plays. It's a little bit hard to tell.
okay,
But I would say 4, 4.5.
All right, let's talk about his shooting. Does he have a quick release? Like if you had the greatest release?
Yeah, it's weird because I feel like the shot. I mean, I really thought he was going to shoot 40% from 3 this year. I probably had too high of hopes, but 36 is really good, especially given that he was in the 20s last year. But I think it's a quick release. It's a high release. It's not a push shot. It's a very smooth shot. Everything is clean. The guide hand and the shooting hand are, they come off cleanly separate from each other. I would say it's a 5 in the release.
Okay. What about his floater? I'm a big floater package guy.
Yeah. I mean, it just comes down for his floater. It's shot selection. It's not ability. He very clearly has that ability. And he brushed it up. That was his lone shot selection issue for me. This, like as a sophomore, was he loved the runner. I mean, like I said, he took 79 last year, 29 this year, and the efficiency doubled. So I think he's got the floater and the runner, and it's true runner. I mean, he will be going left, shooting right, that kind of thing, and he makes it a lot. So to make it over half the time is impressive in that role.
Okay. What about his finishing in traffic versus length? What would you grade him out at?
It's a 5. I mean, his finishing is unreal. He's a top 3 guard finisher in college basketball this last year.
Okay. All right. So what about, we talked a little bit about it, shooting off the catch. What would you give him as a grade?
I would say it's a 4.5. Obviously, it could be a little bit better, but I mean, he shot 41.7% from 3, like spotting up. That's really good. Maybe my expectations were just too high on off the dribble shooting, but his ability to catch and shoot is just really strong. And I think as he gets that more and more consistent, that's really the only knock I could give him that bumps him down from a 5.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about his passing. You mentioned that he averaged a little more than 2 assists per game, but just looking at the raw numbers, that doesn't sound great for a point guard, but this is an opportunity to put it into context. So what would you grade him as, like a transition passer? Does he pass the ball ahead, or is he someone that just, it's kind of like when the 3-on-2, 2-on-1 drills back in high school. I've seen guys that can't make those passes. So what would you grade him as a transition passer?
No, he's quick and he knows how to use himself off ball, especially to set up assists. So like if he'll dump it off quick, he'll cut to the right. I mean, it's just basketball IQ, just filling out the lane and then getting it right back to his cutter after the defense commits in those mismatches. To exploit that mismatch, he does a very good job. So I actually think he's a strong transition passer. That's where a lot of his damage comes from.
Okay. So what would the grade be?
5.
Okay.
I don't see any issues there.
All right. Half court playmaker.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, just because I wish the assist numbers were a little bit higher, I'm actually going to pull this up and double check before I fully commit to that one. Yeah, I mean, his half court numbers are great. It's actually where he got most of his assists. So I think it's a 5. He's just somebody who I think in the NBA spacing, he's not going to be having the same turnovers. And a lot of it was losing the ball, like off of getting ripped or something, walking into double teams because of that lack of college spacing, which just isn't going to happen in the NBA. So it's not a mark on his passing or playmaking ability. It was just the context of the game.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about his overall vision.
I mean, I think he sees the floor well. To be able to be that good out of traps, I don't think that's a product of bad vision. Like, I think that's something that very clearly means he knows where to look, and he sees everything right. Like, he knows exactly where the trap is coming from. Therefore, he's going to be able to look to that spot. It's usually the corner or the wings, very rarely down low. But I think that's something that exemplifies good vision.
Is he like a flashy playmaker? Is he steady, or does he just pretty much control the game?
A combination of the last two. I mean, he's steady. He's not going to make the, the no look zip it pass and like do the face and everything. He's not going to do that. But I do think he likes the flair. He just doesn't get to show it a little bit. I do think that's hidden. But I think for him, he's steady and just kind of keeps the ball moving. He's a floor general. I mean, he is willing to sacrifice his own assist for the offense and getting points, which if he sets up his teammate who sets up the next guy, I think that's a floor general's job.
So is he someone that if he comes in for us in a backup role, we can win the minutes with him on the floor? Can he manage the game?
I think so, especially if you put him out there with another guard that can play all too. I don't think you can put him out there with a not great shooting guard, like a shooting guard, not a two. But I think if you put him out there with that, you might see some struggles just because, I mean, it might hurt the spacing. I think he needs to be out there with another guard that can shoot. Granted, that's like almost every guard in the NBA. I think you're going to be able to win the minutes barring his shot, like just going AWOL, which I don't believe can happen.
All right, defense. Our team needs defense. We can't stop a nosebleed. Is he a multiple effort defender? And if you had to grade him on a scale of 5 being the best, 1 being the worst, what would you grade his effort on defense?
I would say his effort, I mean, I think he takes a lot of charges, which says a lot. I'd say it's a 5. He led the team in charges. He tries on ball defense. Now, what will hurt him there is just the length. But I mean, in terms of effort, you're never going to see him take a play off.
Okay, can he stay in front of guys?
Yeah, he has quick feet, and honestly, feet matter more than length at first in terms of staying in front of a man. So I would say he has good feet.
So what would you give him as far as staying in front of ball handlers?
I'd say 4, just because the length probably pushes him out of some plays that he doesn't need to be in. Maybe 3.5, actually.
Okay. All right. What would you grade him as a team defender?
4. I mean, he's somebody who, the length, 4.5. I'll bump him up. The length is going to hurt, maybe not being able to get the intercepting passes that he needs to get, but he's going to rotate every time. He's going to be able to see, he's going to rotate off of his man. He's going to rotate into the plays, out of the plays, whatever it is. He's not about him, which I think helps him a lot on defense too. Like, he'll stick in the corner when he needs to. He's not going to leave just to help at the rim.
Okay. All right. As far as rebounding, he's a smaller guard, not necessarily a small guard, but is he what I would call like a long rebound competitor? Like, I love watching Kyle Lowry. He turns those long rebounds into like personal rebounds that could lead to fast break opportunities. Is Mike a guy that he goes and gets rebounds, or is he someone that when he gets a rebound, it's because it came to him?
It's more the latter, but it doesn't mean he's not going to try on rebounds. I mean, I think rebounds are pretty 1-to-1 from college to NBA mostly. I mean, he only averaged 2.7 rebounds a game, so that does hurt. But if you look at a lot of his sophomore tape, he did get multiple games over 5 rebounds. And the LSU game is the best example. And he was going against like Eric Gaines, who, I mean, I don't know how his rebounding is exactly off the top of my head, but I do know he was willing to fight against like Tari Eason for rebounds. So I think that says a lot.
All right, last few questions. And this is the most important question. What is his roster role? All-star, top starter, rotation, roster, training camp, European option, G League, or does he need to go get a job and be a family man?
Man, I would hate to be doing a prospect pitch for the guy who I have to answer the last one for.
But hey, some guys they gotta be realistic, man.
I mean, for me, I feel like I'm gonna underrate him by doing this. I'm gonna say somewhere between a rotational guy and a starter. But I feel like with his combination of age, work ethic, and motor, I could see him being a staple of a starter, somebody who you're very happy to have in your front line. I mean, I was the biggest Jalen Brunson guy, I feel like, in 2018, and I never in a million years saw what he's doing now coming. And you never know when a guy can do that. The work ethic really does matter. Jalen Brunson's one of my comparisons for Mike Miles. I think you never know. So I'm not going to count it out, but I'd say, like, given what I've seen right now, and, you know, he's 20 years old, I'd say probably starter rotation player.
So you're saying if he's Jalen Brunson, then we need to lock him in early and not let him get to free agency and make sure that there's a team option in the contract. Is that what you're telling me?
Well, step one is if your said team actually draft the local TCU player. So that's probably step one.
Right. Well, that wraps it up, man. This was really good. Now I can be Rafael. I don't have to be the GM and pretend like I have no idea who Mike Miles is. Now, this was really, really, really good. So whoever comes behind you, they have big shoes to fill. Thank you so much for pitching Mike Miles. And Mike, if you're listening, you have someone that not only is a big fan of yours, but he knows your stats, your numbers. If you're an NBA team, you have questions about Mike Miles, just call Richard Stayman, Mr. Mavs Draft. Thank you to the listener for making Locked On NBA Big Board your first listen of the day. Now check out the Locked On Game to Game, because every top performance in the NBA, every result, Locked On gives you analysis. Locked On Game to Game gives you analysis that only Locked On can deliver. So check it out. You can find the Locked On Game to Game podcast on the Locked On NBA channel. It is available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. Once again, this is Rafael Barlowe with Richard Stayman. We just did a back-to-back, and Richard did a phenomenal job pitching Mike Miles. Again, whoever comes behind Richard, I feel sorry for you. You need to watch this film and study it, because the way he sold Mike Miles, I'm thinking about taking him in the lottery. So, all right. Hopefully everyone has a great day. We are out.